I'm really happy to be here today to talk a little bit about outcome-based reporting. And before we get into the presentation, I just want to do a little housekeeping. We're going to run with the audience on mute today because the audio really does work better that way. And naturally that leads to, well, how are we going to handle questions? Questions will be handled after the session, not during. If you have a question, email it to our support staff like any other question. You folks are educators. You know questions are great. I know questions are great. But there's only one of me, and there's at least 14 of you folks right now. So just email support if you have any questions. And another thing that allows is it allows us to manage the questions and ensure that we really do follow up properly with your questions. We are recording this session today. Thankfully, I do not have a webcam. But the presentation itself, including audio, will be posted on the internet, and you can link to it from our community pages, community.schoollogic.com. Today's presentation is going to discuss the basics of outcomes. We will talk briefly about the why of outcomes, where outcomes are set up, how they move through our products. We'll look at legends and how legends can play into this. We'll see what the teachers see. We'll see actually some report cards that the parents will see, and we'll see how these assessments that the teachers make move into SIRS or SchoolLogic, and how to make sure the assessments get onto your report cards. For our display purposes today, we're going to be using TeacherLogic 3.4.61, and we're going to be using SchoolLogic 3.1.283. SIRS 4, very, very similar to SchoolLogic. All the functionality is the same between what we're looking at, and the screens will be somewhat similar. So what is this outcome-based reporting? Well, outcomes are statements which describe what students are expected to know and be able to do. Outcomes, when the teacher comes into TeacherLogic, she will see the list of outcomes or objectives. She provides an assessment. Assessments make it easy to determine specific strengths and weaknesses in a student's achievement. Assessments make it easy to target areas for improvement or for enhanced learning. And assessments provide meaningful information regarding what a student knows and can accomplish. Well, outcome-based reporting as opposed to what? Well, as opposed to more what I'm going to call traditional reporting. Traditional grade reporting generally shows a numeric average or how effectively students are doing on homework, quizzes, tests. You get a numeric or an alpha evaluation generally based on straight math. You know, add up my points, divide by my number of assignments, right? That's what you usually get, as opposed to a professional educator's evaluation of your student's achievement against a given objective. Now, before we go any further, I've used these four terms already: objective, outcome, assessment, evaluation. Well, let's define them a little bit here. And what we really have is we have two pairs here of synonyms, at least in terms of how our software uses them and how you'll hear me use them today. The top pair, objective and outcome, we hear a lot of talk in education circles about outcomes. Well, in our software, only the TeacherLogic screens literally say outcome. In SIRS 4 and SchoolLogic, you'll see the word objective. In our software, objective and outcome are interchangeable. Which brings me to assessment and evaluation. Now, these refer to the score, mark, or code applied by the teacher. This is what the student earned while working toward an objective. The assessment, or evaluation, is what the teacher provides us. It tells us how well the student's doing. Now, how do we report that? How might it look to a parent? Almost always, we're talking about some form of rubric. And what's rubric really mean? It's a standard of performance for a defined population. Well, how might that look to a parent? Don't readjust your glasses here. I apologize for these next 3 slides. I will do better next week. These slides came out a little fuzzy, but they're examples of rubrics. And in this particular case, on the far left, my teachers are going to choose either, from top to bottom, my teachers are going to choose no evidence, limited, adequate, proficient, or excellent. And then on the right-hand side is a couple sentences of text telling the teachers what level of achievement a kid needs to get to earn limited, adequate, proficient, excellent. Okay, so a rubric is what? It's a lookup table. Same thing here. Little fuzzy again, I apologize. I've got reading from top to bottom, exemplary, proficient, progressing, not yet. Okay, the same sort of concept. The teacher is going to choose one of those 4 terms, and then the text within the box is telling the teacher what the kid has to do to achieve one of those 4 terms. Here's my final example. I promise I'll get you out of the fuzziness here in a minute. My final example of a rubric. This one's a little more interesting because it includes not just codes that a teacher is going to enter and the target that the kid has to hit in order to get that. This rubric also includes a corresponding grade and percentage. So it's going to look a lot more to you like a grade legend, and now I'm starting to foreshadow because we're going to get to grade legends in a second. This particular rubric, from top to bottom, I've got excellent, proficient, basic, or insufficient achievement. Okay, those are my comments that the teacher's going to pick from. If in this particular rubric I wanted to give the kid a conventional grade, excellent goes to an A, proficient goes to B, basic goes to C, and this business about insufficient achievement goes to N. And then there are percentages that go along with each one of those. So again, I apologize for the fuzziness of the slides, but the takeaway here is that a rubric is simply a set of standards, and it's a lookup chart. If I hit this standard, I get this evaluation or assessment. In our software, you will set up your rubric in either a grade legend or an effort legend. Generally, our grade legends, well, for sure, they always use numeric or alpha equivalencies. If you're in a grade legend, you're almost always talking about some form of equivalency. In the effort legend, those tend to be pretty much totally descriptive. And we'll look at both. And we'll start by looking at a very basic grade legend that I took from one of our clients. On the far left, you're seeing code and description, which are, in this case, letter grades that we're all used to seeing. Column 3, I've got my low range. So if a student were to score between 82.5 and 87.5, that kid is going to get a B. Somewhere along the line, if the teacher enters the B and you need a numeric, you're going to ask our system for a numeric rather than the letter grade, you're going to get an 86 because that's the percent equivalent. Okay? All of you operators have grade legends like this in SIRS or in SchoolLogic. I've got another column, of course, over here, the 5th column, which is GPA. That means you could use this legend in GPA calculations. But the big takeaway here that I wanted to show on this slide is a grade legend is always providing you equivalencies back and forth here in the various rows. You've always got some kind of equivalency, and our grade legends always revolve around alphas and numerics. Now, let's go look at the software, and let's go look at another grade legend. And we need to log in because while I was waiting for you guys to show up here today, I lost my time. I timed out. Here I am in Living Moose School District, and I've got a 10-12 outcome evaluation key. And this looks a little different than the last one I showed you because I'm not using letter grades. I have the numeric code down the left, which is what the teachers will actually enter in SchoolLogic. And then I've got a description because these codes are not going to help your parents one iota. the parents are going to be much more interested in the description. And one of the beauties of outcomes objectives, this area, is that the descriptions are a lot more helpful to the parents than just getting an A, B, C. And we're back to what I was talking about at the front end of this conversation, where I talked about you can do a better job with outcome evaluations of nailing what's the kid really good at, what's the kid need a little help at, what's the kid need a lot of help with, okay? Because the grading is more descriptive than A, B, C, D. Now, note I still have a low range here. Note that I still have percent equivalence. So I can still do some math. I'm still about equivalencies if I need to be. Now, you guys probably already know that if you go to scheduling and you go to courses and working in this particular database, I am interested in art education. So art education 305. Here I am in column 1, right, of my courses, grade legend, K9, meaning K to 9, not dog, meaning kindergarten to 9th grade, outcome evaluation. So that's the grade legend that I've assigned. How do I assign it? I assign it in courses where they actually created. They're created in grades under grade legend. Now the interesting other thing about courses here is I can click on objectives. And when I go to objectives, I see all of the objectives that are available for this arts education course. You'll see here they're divided into various categories. Beautiful thing for organization. I can click add objective and I can create an objective from scratch. Many of you sitting out there today have probably imported your list of objectives. It's a beautiful thing, but you can always click on add objective and add more. I'm going to set this up so we're in a little better position later to find that arts class. Now, we probably want to go talk next. We've talked about objectives. We can see they're available. Let's go to class setup and schedule. Because we're at the course level, now we're at the class level. And at the class level, you can see that the grade legend flowed through from the course. I could change it here if I wanted to. And in objectives, here's what's really cool. This is where the rubber is starting to meet the road, because at the class level, when I go to objectives, this is where I'm going to assign which objective gets evaluated in which report period. Okay? So that's obviously a pretty important part of the process. Now, these are objectives at the class level. Well, how does this look to the teacher? I'll show you how it looks to the teacher. Here's my teacher. I'm teaching art education. Allen Bradley School. Remember, we saw that on the bottom on the right before. I've come in here. I've already clicked expand details. You can see I'm in period grades. I'm in report period 1, and these are the outcomes that my school district made available to me. Remember, they were in categories over in SchoolLogic. Here's category number 1. It's called outcomes. Here's category number 2. It's called successful learner behaviors. Okay? I promised you that if we were in Teacher Logic, you'd see the verbiage outcome as opposed to objective. I was right. Now, a couple of things I want you to notice about grade legends here. First of all, notice that I can enter adjusted grades here. And if I click on this drop-down like I just did, I see a range of scores from 4 at the top to HYM and IE at the bottom. Now, where'd that range come from? Well, you guys know where that range came from. It came from my grade legend. Came from my K to 9 outcome evaluation key. Now, I want you guys to remember that my student Mallory has a 3.5, so that's her overall grade for this class. And my other student here, Kale's got a 4. So keep those in mind as we go through our little display here. Now, as far as evaluating the outcomes, and remember, outcomes and objectives are synonyms, I have the same choices to pick from 4 down to NYM and IE. Okay, that's my grade legend talking to me again. The grade legend has been chosen for me to evaluate or assess the objectives on that scale. The thing I want you to remember is that I only have one way to evaluate my outcomes, and it's a numeric value, right? Well, except for these two bottom choices are obviously alphas, but you get the idea. These are basically numerics. And I'm evaluating within that range of options that got fed to me by the grade legend. Now, let's quickly here print us a report card for these two kids. Number one thing I want to do is make sure I'm not printing 20 report cards. I'm going to select my two students, Mallory and Kale, and I'm going to say, bring the report card up to the screen. Okay, I told you to remember two numbers. I said Mallory is getting a 3.5. Why, yes she is. Here's Arts Education, she's getting a 3.5. And let's scroll down and see our buddy Kale. Here's Kale getting a 4. Okay, Kale, we didn't take the time to give any assessments for his objectives, or her, not quite sure what Kale would be. But I tell you what, Mallory, we gave her some outcomes. We evaluated here 1, 2, and 3 of her outcomes. I entered those assessments, and what we see here are the numeric scores. Now, the numeric scores are not, again, terribly helpful to the parent, except down at the bottom of my report card, here's my grade legend. So Mallory got a 4 in this very first objective. Well, what's a 4 mean? A 4 means she's got insightful understanding of the outcome. So a little more description, we know a little bit more about what the kid is doing, and instead of getting this big general number, 3.5 for arts education, the beauty of objectives and outcomes is we break down into various smaller components. What's the student actually working on? How's the kid coming along? Makes a ton of sense. Now, let's get rid of our report card. And let's go see how an effort legend might handle some of these same challenges. So we're going to go to our other school. Let's go to the United States school. And I'm not suggesting here that grade legends are only Canadian schools and effort legends are only American schools. It's just the way the data happens to be set up. So we're going to go in here to this one particular building. Of course, the American school is somewhat slower, despite the fact that I'm sitting in America. Don't know why. But when the data comes up here, we are going to go to grades and we're going to go to effort legends. Now, notice how different an effort legend looks from a grade legend. Notice here that I've got a list of codes, which is what my teacher is going to enter, literally in SchoolLogic, but I have these longer descriptors. I have descriptions of how my kid is progressing. Okay, number 4, as a matter of fact, exceeds expectations, consistently grasps, applies, extends key concepts. Okay, there's a ton of information here. Effort legends tend to be much more based on descriptions. These can be used to provide an assessment of the student's overall effort in the class, and you can use the same effort legend to assess the objectives. Remember in the last example, the kid got an overall grade based on the grade legend, and then we assessed the individual objectives based on the same grade legend. Working with this, we're going to give the kid an effort level for her overall class, and we're going to use one of these to assess each one of her objectives. Larger information, smaller information. Now, when you're working in SchoolLogic and you're working in SIRS, an interesting thing to remember about the effort legend is the effort legend can be assigned to an entire track. So when I go to Setup and I go to Tracks and I pick this first track, if I click on Tracks over here, look at this. I've already chosen my effort legend. Now, if you did only that, your classes in SchoolLogic would pick up this assignment and teachers could use this effort legend to assess both the overall effort and also the objectives. But we give you the opportunity to enter a different effort legend at the course level. So here I am at the course level. I like English Language Arts 3. Notice that here's my objective-based effort, but I could click Edit and I could pick a different one. You know, where did this come from in the first place? It came from tracks. But maybe I want a different effort legend because this is I've got different course levels going on here. Maybe I've got different grade levels, different course types, even individual courses, okay? ELA versus behavior. I could choose different effort legends. So we showed you how on column 2 of the information tab, you're going to find, third one from the bottom, effort legend. Notice that my objectives are here, not surprisingly, just like they are at the course level in my other data. And now if I go to scheduling and I go to class setup and schedule, let's pick that EL class again. If I go here, there's a third place for me to enter an effort legend. I'm sorry, I just misspoke. There's not a third place for me to enter an effort legend. But note that I can, again, come in here to objectives, and this is where I would select which objective gets evaluated during which reporting period. Now, what I didn't show you. Okay. What I didn't show you. Regardless of whether you use grade legends or effort legends, you assign many of the details of outcome-based reporting in Logic Admin. Okay, Logic Admin is a lesser-known part of our suite. You guys have all heard of Teacher Logic. You've all heard of SchoolLogic. You've all heard of SIRS. Some of you may not have heard of Logic Admin. Logic Admin is one of those places where you go in August, you make a whole bunch of choices, and you more or less leave them alone. That's kind of the way it works. Now, let's log into my Living Moose district. Because after all, why would you name your school district after dead moose? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I've got Teacher Logic, I go to period grades, and here's where we're talking about course objectives and course objective grading. So what Logic Admin allows, it allows me to control a bunch of the settings and a bunch of the possibilities in Home Logic and Teacher Logic primarily. And of course today we're worried about Teacher Logic. So if we go to period grades, we see the bottom part here is really the biggie, this course objective grading. And you'll notice that's what I've got engaged here. I want to allow course objective grading. If you're doing objective grading and you want to use an effort legend, most people will pick only the bottom one. Here, I'm picking the top one. Why? Because I'm going to use my grade legends. I could, one of the things that happens then is the display shifts a little in Teacher Logic. The column header above where the teachers enter their assessments says alpha. You could pick both. Maybe in a situation where the upper grades of your schools use course objective grading, and then you'd move to the right out here on this display where it says grade level range, and you would choose in which grade levels you desire to use course objective grading. The bottom box is checked if you pick both of them because you've got other grades where you're going to use only effort entry. I believe that then you'd see two columns over in Teacher Logic, but the column on the left, its drop-down entries are blank. Okay. The middle part of this display, you have these custom course objectives. Right? These guys? Okay. Allow customized class course objectives. Well, what's that all about? It allows teachers to customize which objective is assessed in which report period for the entire class. Okay, notice the word class here. So remember, back in SIRS and SchoolLogic, we chose which objectives are going to be evaluated in which report periods. Well here, if I engage this, a teacher can take that and run with it for the whole class. She can decide on her own which objectives are going to be evaluated, but she's applying them to the whole class. Now, remember, any one objective can be evaluated or assessed in report period 1, report period 2. You know, the point is, a single objective can be evaluated in either a single report period, a couple of report periods, or all your report periods. Generally, that's set at the building level, or maybe it's even set by your district decision makers, but it doesn't have to be. If you check this box, this check mark allows teachers to set choices for the entire class. If you engage this, the teacher will get a Select Outcomes button. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you click this top guy, I'm a teacher, I've got a button here that says Select Outcomes. And when the teacher's working from this button, she's selecting outcomes for her entire class. As opposed to the second choice, which is allow customized student course objectives. And being smart learners, you probably have picked up that if the top one emphasizes the word class, then when the bottom one emphasizes the word student, I must be adjusting my objectives student by student, and that's exactly right. The top one says class, allowing the teacher to adjust the objectives class by class for the whole group. This middle one says student, and this allows teachers to decide not period by period, but student by student as to which objectives are evaluated. If you engage this, the teacher gets a little button down here at the end of every kid in which she can choose which objectives she wants to select for that student for that marking period. So we showed you those two choices in Teacher Logic. Either teacher will work, meaning either of these two choices here. So a lot of you probably haven't seen Logic Admin before. It generally takes a district login to get here, but now you've seen it and you know a little bit more than you knew before, which is, you know, the whole point. So that's what I didn't show you the first time around. Now, at this point in the process, somebody might ask, well, how many outcomes are the right number? Because we just gave you a whole bunch of choices, right? Either the school and or district decides at the course level, or as you've just seen, the teacher decides at either the class level or the student level. Well, how many outcomes are the right number? And you know what? That's an individual answer. The number of outcomes can vary by subject area, can vary by class. It's not for us to tell you, okay? My suspicion is your administration will decide, or a faculty committee will decide, or even individual teachers decide. But no matter which of those decision-making processes you use in your school, our software accommodates your process and easily allows for the fact that you might wish to vary the number in any class. And this is just a little chart that one of my colleagues gave me. Don't know where the chart came from. I'm not telling you these are the numbers you have to have. I'm telling you, you get to pick. And that brings us to our last stop along our little mystery tour here of objectives and outcomes and assessments and evaluations. Choices you make at the time of printing. Because at the very, very top of this, I said one of the things we're going to look at is how do you get your objectives onto the report card. This is kind of important. And so let's start by going back to our Teacher Logic. And this will take me just a second to really get into this. Sure, I'm sure. I want to log out. Beautiful. A person could do these presentations a lot faster if you had everything set up on slides in PowerPoint, but the interactive nature of educating you by using the actual package just makes a ton more sense to me. You end up with a few delays like this when you're trying to get your machine to cooperate, but showing you the actual choices that teachers get to make and operators get to make in the actual software, I think, really outweighs that. So we want to go look at one of our students here in this class. And now what's going to happen is I'm going to come up in attendance because I didn't pick period grades first, so I have to let attendance build in, and once you look at everybody's attendance, I can go ahead and click on period grades and get to where I really need to be. Let's go to period grades. When we get over to period grades, one of the things we'll notice is that I am working in report period 2, and knowing that you're in report period 2 is important, because once you get around to the report cards end of it and you're starting to make choices on the report cards, nice to know. Very helpful. And one of the things that's nice about SchoolLogic is when it comes in here, it'll kind of hit you over the head with where you are. It'll hit you over the head with, yeah, look, we're in report period 2. When we get into period grades here, see right here? Very, very top of the screen, yeah, I'm in report period 2 as opposed to the other reporting periods, and I don't want to show them to you right now. Trust me, the other ones are there, because I don't want to show them to you right now because it'll take even longer for the screen to fill in. Select outcomes, remember what he did. He's there because we made a choice over in Logic Admin. We made the choice that, you know what, we want the teachers to be able to choose by class which objectives we're going to have. I appreciate your patience and actually waiting for my screen to fill in. Here's my good friend Salvador Allen. He's all marked up here. And before we get to the objectives, I wanted to show you the other things that a teacher is going to edit here. If the teacher clicks on edit, because a teacher can enter those objectives a couple of different ways. She could enter it from the main screen, or she could enter it from this pop-up screen. We talked a little bit ago about, you know, I can have an effort. I can give the kid an overall effort grade. That's what I've done here. Where are those choices coming from? Those choices are coming from my effort legend. And down here, the same choices are available to me because this is drawing from the same effort legend, but here I'm grading, obviously, my individual outcomes. Now, the reason I wanted to bring you into the pop-up box is because some teachers like to enter report card comments, and I can also enter something called elementary report card comments. Now, those of you that have done this once or twice, you already know that in our packages, SIRS and SchoolLogic, if you want to do outcome-based grading, you want to use the elementary report card, because the elementary report card is the only one in our package that prints the objectives. Okay? I can have 2 different sets of comments if I wish to. I can have these things called elementary report card comments, and you can see that the comment I've entered in here includes an abbreviation for elementary. This will help you find it when we go look at the report card in a couple of minutes. And I can also do report period comments. Report period comments entered by my EL3 teacher. I can only get to those comment areas if I click edit. And these little check marks here are telling me that for this student, I've entered a report card comment, and I've entered, it just says C here, but it means the report period comments. Elementary report card comments, period comments. Salvador's got a 1, 2, and 3. I want you to remember that, coming down from the top. Here's my second student, Justin. Justin's doing a little better on my effort scale. Justin's getting a 4. My friend Salvador here is getting a P+. Went down too many kids. Here's Justin with a 4. Notice I have not entered any comments for my friend Justin. That's why these guys are blank. Now, it'll come into play later that Justin does not have an evaluation for the second reading outcome. He's got a 1 at the top, a 3 at the bottom. He's got nothing in the middle. And we're going to go ahead and click Submit. And by clicking Submit, of course, we are moving those grades over into SchoolLogic in my case. And I'm just waiting for the happy little message. The teacher, after she or he clicks Submit, actually gets a happy little message. It looks exactly like this that says, grades have been submitted successfully. We're going to go over to SchoolLogic, and we need to be in Justin's school. I want to show you where, and here's Salvador, so we know we're in the right place. I'm going to let his demographics build in here for just a second, and then we'll take you where we really want to go, which is we want to go to see where does this stuff come in. So if I go to grades, I need to go to elementary grades and objectives. And remember, we're in report period 2. And here's where the stuff comes in. This is where your secretaries would go look to see the work that the teachers have done. Now remember, there was an elementary report card piece that I could enter in TeacherLogic. Here's where it displays in SchoolLogic. There was a report card comment. Notice that it displays with the class in SchoolLogic. Remember my friend Salvador was getting a P+. There it is. I scroll down here a little bit. Remember at the top, the display is a little different here in SchoolLogic as opposed to TeacherLogic, but remember our objective category was reading, and Salvador was getting 1, 2, 3. Okay, right down the row. And my other kid that we wanted to look at was Justin. And if we go to Justin and we go to report period 2, we didn't have any comments entered for him, but remember how our scores went? There was a 1 at the top, there was a 3 at the bottom, and oh, by the way, this guy in the middle was empty. So when you are troubleshooting report cards and you're saying, I'm not getting data for one of my students, don't go all the way back to TeacherLogic to check at your first check. Your first check should be here, grades menu, elementary grades and objectives, to see, well, has the data made it to SchoolLogic from TeacherLogic? Good to know if it has or if it hasn't. Now, let's print some report cards for these kids. These are, and I'll tell you another thing while we're waiting for this report card. Test your report cards out way before you need them. Okay? If report cards are due on Friday, don't wait till Wednesday to start testing a couple kids to see if they work. Most important thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure I'm not printing 93 students. We want Salvador and we want Justin, 2 students. So my thought there about testing your report cards, test early. Okay? I'm in report period 2. Remember I said it was important to know that? Excuse me. It's important to know that because I have to pick at the report card level which grades am I going to choose. Okay? So report card number 2. Notice that at the report card level I can have some general comments. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up November 10th. That's going to go on every kid's report card. Okay? Let's preview and see what we've got. Okay, here's my buddy Salvador. Here's parent-teacher conferences. Remember I just showed you that? Prints right at the very top of the report card. ELA is the class we're interested in. Remember we said he was getting an overall P+. There it is. Here are my overall comments that are entered by the teacher. By the way, at the time you print the report card, you can tell the computer to print this not with the class. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. Obviously a little editorializing there. I would print mine with the class. So those are report period comments that were entered by my teacher. If you remember our evaluations back in TeacherLogic for report period 2, Salvador was getting a 1, a 2, and a 3. exactly what you see here. Here's the work he was doing back in report period 1. You can choose at the time you print the report card to print future headers or not. Otherwise, this just becomes white space. Remember that my EL teacher also entered a comment. Here it is, elementary report card comments. Now, I want to go back and draw your attention to these numbers, right? Because I was kind of poo-pooing numbers a little while ago and I said numbers don't really tell us much. Well, when you use an effort legend, what am I getting here? Using decoding skills to read multisyllabic words. Okay, student got a 1 in that. Well, what's a 1 really mean? That's why I chose to print the legend. So the parent goes down here and says needs support, not grasping key concepts, processes, and essential skills. This is an area of concern that requires support. Now there's a lot of meat in that, okay? The school district, when they set up their effort legend, they set up the descriptors to really help a parent out. So this other one here, the kid's getting a 3. Well, what's a 3 mean? Meets standards, grasps and applies key concepts, processes, skills, meets stated benchmarks. So the beauty of grading with an effort legend is and grading objectives, where I'm not just grading one assignment. I'm not just giving one grade for social studies. I'm grading individual pieces, individual objectives and outcomes. You get a lot of information here for the parents. Now, here's my buddy Justin. Remember, he was not getting evaluated in the second one. Remember, he was getting a 1 at the top, he was getting a 3 at the bottom, but that 1 in the middle was blank. Well, the whole point of this is you might say to yourself, when I'm printing the report card, I need this real estate. If the teacher has chosen not to evaluate, maybe I don't want to print that on my report card. When you're printing your report card, these choices down here on the bottom on the left are huge. The choices you make here have a tremendous impact on how that report card prints. So let's look at this second one. Do I want to include objectives that have no previous effort and they have no present effort? Let's uncheck that. Let's say we don't want to include that. And let's see what happens with our report card. Because the choices you make when you're processing that report card for printing, those choices are huge. Now, check out my friend Justin. Remember, it used to say 1 blank 3, the blank one's gone. Okay? So I can reduce the amount of space I need to print stuff that's not being evaluated anyway. Okay? Because remember, not every objective is going to be evaluated in each and every report period, unless, of course, you tell it. Okay? A kid's always going to get some kind of a grade each and every report period, but you may not always evaluate each and every objective in each and every report period. So the choices that you make here are really, really important. And that's one of the reasons I said a minute ago, you want to start testing your report card well before you need it, okay? Because the choices that you make when you are doing the actual report card printing are huge. Give yourself time to experiment with it. Give yourself time to make sure you're really getting what you want the parents to see. Okay, it's 45 or 46 minutes after the hour. Everybody take a breath. Those were the basics of how outcome-based reporting works. I expect a lot of what I just showed you is already set up and already functioning in your databases, in your school districts and your divisions. If you learn nothing else today, I want you to remember, start testing your report card well before you need it. This is true whether you use objectives or whether you use straight grades. I want you to experiment with those settings on the print preferences screen. SIRS users, you have them just as well as the SchoolLogic users that I just showed. They're really, really important in getting what you want onto the paper and into the hands of your parents. I hope you found this valuable. See, I got you out even a little before the top of the hour, which is a good thing. If you wish to refer to this later, or you wish to share this with colleagues later who couldn't make it today, A recording of this session will be on our community pages as well at community.schoollogic.com. So, on behalf of SchoolLogic, all my friends up in Edmonton and the other offices that we all work in, I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, from the teaching community to be out here with us today. Thanks for your interest in our product. Thanks for your interest in our ongoing little series here of webinars. We will have another webinar next Wednesday talking about other grades, not outcomes and objectives, but other grades. So you can sign up for that. All the stuff is being shown to you at community.schoollogic.com. You can see what's going on with our company. You can see what the webinars are that are coming up and the other opportunities we have for you. So thanks for coming by. I really appreciate the audience, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.